ladies and gentlemen. Like we told y'all last week, my name is Ken Donnelly, along with Richard Buxman, who's sitting at the council table with me. We represent the state of Florida in this proceeding. First of all, let me thank you for your service. Our system of justice has relied on jurors for well over 3 centuries. Without people just like you throughout history, our judicial system would fail to function. Without jurors, we do not have a judicial system. Because of that, you are extremely important to the system, and we sincerely do appreciate your service. We will try to make this process as painless as possible, but I understand that there are sacrifices that you are making to be here. We are sympathetic to that, and we will make every possible effort not to waste your time. Now, having said that, let's turn to what this case is really about. Like Judge Munyon said, what I say in opening statement and what defense counsel says in opening statement is not evidence. This is what we expect the evidence will show you. With that, let me try to tell you the story about what this case is really about. In 2002, Theresa Ann Green lived in Orlando, Florida. She worked at Florida Hospital. Her address was apartment 11 at 3216 Cornell Avenue, which is within the city limits of Orlando. Across the hall from apartment 11 is apartment 12, and this is a second-story apartment. The stairwell leading up, apartment 11 on one side of the stairwell, landing apartment 12 on the other side of the stairwell landing. Joseph and Joyce Butler lived in apartment 12. Mr. Hunter, who was known to the residents of this apartment building as Mike, was renting a room from an individual who lived in apartment 9, which was downstairs from apartments 11 and 12. On the evening of May the 26th, 2002, there was a small party hosted by Joyce and Joseph Butler. And let me back up just a minute. You will hear from both Joseph and Joyce Butler. However, you will hear from Joyce Butler somewhat out of order. She came down sick over the weekend and will be testifying remotely, so she will be later in the day. Logically, she would testify right after or right before Joseph Butler, but we're having to make accommodations because she came down with COVID. So we're adjusting on the fly for that. Anyway, Theresa Ann Green was last seen alive about 2:30 in the morning, May the 26th. 2:30 in the morning is when Joyce Butler shut the party down because she had to go to work the next day. So Joseph Butler kicked everybody out. Theresa Ann Green was attending this party with a gentleman then known to everyone as Mike. Now we know that was Demorris Hunter. Everybody leaves the party. Everyone returns to their residences. Mr. Hunter and Ms. Green go to apartment 11. A few minutes later, a lady named Lida Green, I believe is her name, who is Ms. Butler's daughter, goes over to check on Theresa Green and knocks on the door of apartment 11. Mr. Hunter answers the door. Ms. Green inquires about Ms. Green's well-being. And he says, she was upset, but she's calm now. A few minutes later, she goes back, checks again, knocks on the door, there's no answer. Now, at 7 o'clock the next morning, Mr. Hunter knocks on Joseph and Joyce Butler's door and asks to speak to Then, Mr. Butler is asked by Demorris Hunter to follow Mr. Hunter, who was driving the car belonging to Theresa Ann Green. I said Lotta Green, I meant Lotta Moore, my apologies. Too many names, I get them all mixed up. Anyway, Mr. Hunter had never been seen to drive Ms. Green's car before, but he was driving it this Sunday morning. And he asks Mr. Butler to follow him in a van that Mr. Hunter was using at the time, an older, former work van, I believe the evidence will show. And Mr. Butler does this. They set out driving towards Sanford. Mr. Hunter parks the victim's vehicle. Mr. Butler waits in the van, moves over to the passenger seat eventually, and then I think he may have gone in the Walgreens perhaps to get an aspirin or an Alka-Seltzer or something, or maybe cigarettes, I'm not sure which it was. Realized he didn't have his money with him, so he came back, got the passenger seat, and waited till Mr. Hunter got back in the car, or in the van. Mr. Hunter says to Mr. Butler, "I did something really bad." Mr. Butler says, "Nope, I don't want to hear anything else. Let's just go back home." So they drive the van, Mr. Hunter driving, return back to Cordell Avenue. It's the last time Mr. Hunter's seen. Ms. Green, like I said, works at Florida Hospital. She did not report for work on the 26th or on the 27th. So then her son and relative call law enforcement. Law enforcement arrives. They go in or enter Ms. Green's apartment. They find a hole in the drywall that's roughly shoulder width. You'll see a photograph of it, I believe. They find a lady's purse on the bed. It's been dumped out, all the contents strewn all over the bed. And they find a broken lady's wristwatch in the bathroom that has blood on it. Law enforcement, like I said, is on the scene. They speak with the Butlers. They learn about the trip to Sanford. They ask Sanford police to look for Ms. Green's vehicle. They find it in the Walgreens parking lot, just where Joseph Butler said it to them. Sanford Fire is called to the scene as well to assist in gaining entry into the vehicle. And by this time, Orlando Police Department detectives and crime scene personnel are on scene, as well as Sanford Police and Sanford Fire. They ultimately succeed, fire ultimately succeeds in forcing entry into the vehicle. I believe they popped one of the little vent wings that you don't have anymore on cars that you had back then. Somehow either broke it or popped it out, gained access to the car, found a body effects in the trunk, wrapped up in a sheet. That body turned out to be that of Theresa Ann Green. And while this is happening, the investigation is also ongoing at the apartment. You've got two things going on at the same time here. The van belonged to another individual, and like I said, it was being made available to Mr. Hunter for his use. The van is ultimately reported as stolen. The van is ultimately found burning on the side of the road in Houston, Texas. A warrant by this time had been issued for Mr. Hunter, who had been identified as Demorris Hunter, rather than the name that people knew him by as Mike. A warrant had been issued for his arrest. And Mr. Hunter was ultimately taken into custody in Houston, Texas. This is an overview of what we expect the evidence to show. I've not talked about every single witness. That's for a later time. This is an overview. You will hear from various technical witnesses. You will hear from the medical examiner who will describe Ms. Green's death by strangulation. You will hear from an arson investigator. You will hear from crime scene investigators. You'll hear from detectives. And you'll hear from civilian witnesses. At the conclusion of this evidence, the state will ask you to return the verdict finding Mr. Hunter guilty as charged of murder in first degree. Thank you.
On behalf of Mr. Marrero and Mr. Hunter, again, we would like to thank you for your service as well. As counsel said, we could not do this without your participation. And we know that you will pay attention to the evidence that is presented and do your job as instructed by the court. This case is not about speculation. It's not about suspicion. It's not about assumptions. It's about proof. Whether the state of Florida can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this was a premeditated first-degree murder. They cannot. What you will hear in this courtroom is a tragic story. A tragic story about too much alcohol on the part of Ms. Green and Mr. Butler, tempers that were flaring, a series of chaotic events that spiraled out of control. But what you will not hear is any credible, reliable evidence that this defendant planned, intended, or carried out a deliberate killing. Before I go into what we anticipate the evidence to show, in essence, we're asking you to bake a cake. Before I do that, it's probably important that I give you a little bit of directions in terms of what you can consider. And we anticipate at the close of the case, the judge will read to you a jury instruction with regard to the weighing of the evidence. And I think it's important, before you hear any evidence, that you're reminded about what you can consider when you are weighing the evidence. It is up to you to decide what evidence is reliable. You should use your common sense in deciding which is the best evidence and which evidence should not be relied upon in considering your verdict. You may find some of the evidence not reliable or less reliable than other evidence. You should consider how the witness acted as well as what they said. Some things that you should consider are: did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see or know the things about which the witness testified? Did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? Was the witness honest and straightforward in answering the attorney's questions? Did the witness have some interest in how the outcome should be decided? Does the witness testimony agree with other testimony and other evidence in this case? Has the witness been offered or received any money or preferred treatment or benefit in order to get the witness to testify? Had any pressure or threat been used against the witness that affected the truth of the witness's testimony? And did the witness at some time or other time make a statement that is inconsistent with the testimony that they gave in court? Has the witness been convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor involving dishonesty or false statement? And does the witness have a general reputation for dishonesty or truthfulness? Whether the state has met its burden of proof does not depend on the number of witnesses that are called or upon the number of exhibits that are offered, but instead upon the nature and quality of the evidence presented. The fact that a witness is employed as a law enforcement officer does not mean that his or her testimony deserves more or less consideration than that of any other witness. Expert witnesses are like other witnesses, with one exception. The law allows and permits an expert witness to give his or her opinion. However, an expert's opinion is only reliable when given on a subject about which you believe them to be an expert. Like other witnesses, you may believe or disbelieve all or any part of an expert's testimony. It is entirely proper for a lawyer to talk to witnesses about the testimony the witness would give if called to the courtroom. The witness should not be discredited for talking to the lawyer about their testimony. And you may rely upon your own conclusion about the credibility of any witness. A juror may believe or disbelieve all or any part of the evidence or the testimony of any of the witnesses. Let's start with what we actually know. We know there are 3 locations that are involved in this particular case. The first location, and you're going to hear the whole testimony with regard to the Bay Run Apartments. They're flat, 2-story apartments. There's separate units, sort of a square rectangular unit. There's 4 units per building, 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs, connected by a very long and narrow stairwell. It's about 14 steps from top to bottom, and when you walk down the stairwell, you can touch both sides. And that turns out to be very critically important in this case. Mr. Hunter was renting apartment 9, which was sort of, if you're looking at the building downstairs on the left, renting a room in that location. Theresa Green lived in apartment 11, which was the upper left-hand quadrant apartment, and the Butlers resided in the upper right-hand apartment. And we believe the testimony is going to show that on the Saturday night of the 25th and into the morning of the 26th, there was a party that was going on in the Butlers' apartment. And in that party, they were having a good time. They were sitting around the table, talking. Theresa Green had been drinking. Mr. Butler had been drinking. And at some point, Mrs. Butler, who had to work at Florida Hospital the next morning, called her husband into the bedroom, asked him to keep it down. He comes storming out of the bedroom, slamming the door, visibly upset. She eventually comes out and asks him to turn the music down. He gets even more upset. He knocks over a lamp. He knocks over a fan. And he opens the door and orders everybody out of the house. On the way out of the house, Theresa Green slaps Mr. Butler across the face. And Mr. Butler slaps Theresa Green across her face, such that it causes her nose to bleed. And her blood is left on the door frame of apartment 12. Lisa Moore, we anticipate, who's the adult daughter, Lisa Moore Turner, is actually her name at the current moment, is the adult daughter of the Butlers. And she says that she leaves the apartment at that point when Joseph is so upset because he won't let her use, his own stepdaughter, won't let her use the house phone. Remember 2002, this is pre-cell phones, right? We had to rely on house phones to make phone calls. But she wants to call her brother for a reason that you'll hear, whatever reason you'll hear during the testimony. And her son, who's a child at that point, is, in her words, sleeping in Miss Green's apartment. So she's going to check on him and retrieve him and bring him back. She goes into the apartment, she uses the phone, she calls her brother, she checks on Theresa Green, who's still hot under the collar, and we anticipate that Lisa Moore will testify that Mr. Hunter, who's known as Mike to all of these folks in the apartment complex, was attempting to, he had been attempting to keep Miss Green and Mr. Butler apart from each other because they're still mad at each other and they're still having words and they're still trying to get at each other. And he's trying to play Switzerland and keep the two of them apart. And while all of that is happening at the top of these stairs in between apartments 11 and 12, we believe the testimony will be, the Butlers will say that Theresa Green was grabbing onto Mike, and what Mr. Hunter was saying to Miss Green, "Why are you mad at me? Why are you trying to fight me?" And Miss Green was kicking at Mr. Hunter, and that trying to still get at Joseph Butler, who had slapped her across the face and caused her to have a bloody nose. And during that tussle at the top of the stairs, that Mr. Hunter fell over backwards down the stairs on his back, and that Miss Green fell over top of him, and they fell all the way from the top of the stairs to the bottom of the stairs, all 14 stairs. We believe Lisa Moore will testify that she saw all of that take place and happen, and that she saw that happen, and that she saw Miss Green get back up, and that Mr. Hunter got back up, and that they went back up into apartment 11. Miss Moore will say that she got her son, it's 2:30 in the morning now, she brought her son down to her car, down at the bottom of the stairwell of the apartment, placed her son in that car, and that she went back and forth, up and down the stairs. She knocked on the door trying to use the phone again, presumptively to call her brother again. And at that point, Mr. Hunter came to the door and said, Miss Green is trying to calm down, now is not a good time to come in. And that she then went back into her stepfather and mother's apartment. And as she was going back and forth, she waited at the bottom of the stairs. Her brother eventually arrived at 3 o'clock. There was another neighbor that they were actually talking to at the bottom of the stairs. And she said she knocked at the top of the stairs again, but no one answered. And that was the last time that she saw Theresa. The other location that we're talking about factually that we believe the testimony will come out is that testimony will come out that that Theresa Green's vehicle was found in Sanford, Florida, which is about 15 miles from the location of the apartments. Remember, these apartments are on the corner of Parr and I-4, flat top roofs right there at that location. If you've ever taken that western on-ramp to I-4 from Parr, that's the location. Those apartments are right there at that location. And the location of Theresa Green's car was located at CVS in Sanford, Florida, about 11 miles or 12 miles up I-4, about 5 miles east, in the heart of Sanford. And that Joseph Butler will testify, and Joyce Butler will testify, that Mr. Hunter knocked on their door at 7 o'clock in the morning and asked Mr. Butler to drive his van, the white van that he had use of, to that location, and that left Theresa Green's vehicle there. Again, it's very important, I think, for you guys to make decisions about what evidence you find to be credible versus not credible. And after that, Mr. Butler allegedly went in the store to get an Alka-Seltzer. He says he came out. He says that Mr. Hunter said, I did a bad thing. He says nothing else. He says, I don't want to hear anything else. He gets in the car and they drive back, and that's the end of that conversation. And that was 7 o'clock on Sunday morning, May 26th. Miss Green's son doesn't come back to the apartment until Monday, the 27th, at around 3 in the afternoon. He gets a phone call from his grandmother, or calls his grandmother. After he gets to the apartment, he finds the apartment door unlocked, the lights are on, the contents of the purse are upside down on the bed. There's a broken watch on the floor that he then puts on the bathroom counter. He then goes and knocks on the Butler's apartment door, apartment 12, and Joseph Butler never tells him the truth. Never says, your mother fell down the stairs on Saturday night, your mother slapped me in the face and I slapped her back on Saturday night. Mr. Butler never says, Mr. Hunter asked me to drive and follow your mother's vehicle to Sanford. He never says any of that to the middle school age child of Mrs. Green who came back from spending the weekend at a friend's house. It's not until later that evening when the police arrive at the location that the Butlers then decide that they're going to talk to the police or cooperate with the police. So during all of this, Joseph Butler Sunday morning never calls the police, Sunday afternoon never calls the police, Monday morning never calls the police. Lisa Moore never calls the police on Sunday morning, on Sunday afternoon, on Monday morning, on Monday afternoon. Mrs. Butler never calls the police on Monday morning or Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, or Monday morning, or Monday afternoon. It's not till the police show up because Octavius Hayes, the daughter of Theresa Green, and Theresa Green's mother arrive at the location saying, I've got a call there since she didn't go to work on Monday morning. We don't know where she is. The other location that we're talking about is in Texas, Houston, Texas. And the van that Mr. Hunter had access to or driving to is found burnt in a location on a line of the city of Houston and Harris County, which is the county that Houston is in. You'll hear testimony from an arson investigator that will say that the vehicle was burnt out, but the arson investigator will say never took any samples from inside the vehicle, didn't pull any DNA or fingerprints, have no idea when it actually burnt, knew where the fire started, had no idea what the accelerant was, couldn't tell you if Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicked over a lantern in the back of that van and started a fire. And that there's no beneficial evidence or no evidence linking Demorris Hunter to that van, to that fire, or to that location. You'll also hear forensically from the experts in this case that the Oldsmobile that Ms. Green drove, where unfortunately, again in this tragic story, her body was found in the backup, that there's no DNA that links Mr. Hunter to driving that vehicle. There's no fingerprints on the trunk of that vehicle. There's no fingerprints on the steering wheel or on a door handle or a window or anything that links Mr. Hunter to that location. There's no videotape inside the Walgreens, outside the Walgreens, or anywhere between Parr and Sanford that links Mr. Hunter having driven that vehicle to that location. And you'll hear forensically from the city of Orlando forensic experts that there is nothing that links Mr. Hunter forensically to harming Mrs. Green in any way. Not his DNA transferred onto her, not any DNA in the apartment, not a fingerprint on anything with the exception of some dishware in the kitchen, which would indicate that he had been in the apartment previously socially and had either touched a bowl or touched a coffee cup. You will hear from a medical examiner that this is not a calculated execution. This is obviously the events of that Saturday night and Sunday morning are confusion and instability as to what happens to people whose judgment is clouded by alcohol consumption. You will hear that Ms. Green had a blood alcohol level of almost a 0.30, which is almost 4 times the legal limit to drive. And that at that level of alcohol impairment, that is severe impairment, which can cause death. You'll hear the medical examiner say, if her body was found in her bed in her apartment, I would have believed that she died of alcohol poisoning. In addition, you'll hear the medical examiner say that the hyoid bone, bones in the neck, which often fracture during manual strangulation, that those were not fractured, that those were dislocated. And that's a critical piece of evidence, we believe. You will see no signs of manual strangulation in terms of bruising, or there's a specific scientific word called petechiae, which looks like little ant bites when someone has been strangled. The blood vessels in their neck pop, and the blood vessels in their eyes get little red dots. That's called petechiae. Listen for that. You'll see an absence of that in this case. There are no eyewitnesses to any killing. No one saw my client harm this woman in any way in her apartment. There's no forensic evidence tying Mr. Hunter to the apartment, with the exception of the fingerprints I mentioned earlier on the dishware. The state wants you to conclude that this was an intentional murder, yet their own medical evidence opens the door to accidental death. Talked about the Butlers, which we believe are the state's star witnesses in this case, the fact that they did not notify the police, the fact that they were untruthful to the middle school age child of the victim, and they were initially uncooperative or less than forthcoming to investigators. Their testimony is inconsistent, it is self-serving, it is unreliable, and they have every reason to distance themselves from this situation that started in their apartment under their own roof. Mr. Hunter did leave to go to Texas, and leaving alone does not prove murder, does not prove premeditation, does not prove intent. Sometimes people panic in situations, but also we believe you'll hear evidence that Mr. Hunter was, this is May 28th, or 25th, 26th, 27th. The 27th is Memorial Day weekend of 2002. The location that Mr. Hunter was renting, that individual had to be out at the end of the month, and we will argue to you, or believe that the testimony will show that the reason there was a party or a celebration in the Butler's apartment was to celebrate Mr. Hunter leaving that location, that he was actually already leaving. At the end of this trial, when you've heard all the evidence, not assumptions, not speculation, but evidence, you'll be left with reasonable doubts. Doubts about how this woman truly died, doubt about what happened in that apartment, about perhaps what happened on that stairwell, and doubt about who, if anyone, is criminally responsible for her death. In our system of justice, doubt is not a weakness, it is a safeguard. It is the law. And at the end of the case, we will come and we will ask you to render what we believe the only verdict that the evidence proves in this case, or doesn't prove, and that's a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Self. State, you may call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Joseph Butler.